Welcome to the Agency Insider podcast, where we dive deep into the world of digital marketing and SEO. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal, and today we have a very special guest with us, Charles Floate. Charles is a renowned SEO expert known for his innovative strategies and in-depth knowledge of both black hat and white hat SEO. His journey is nothing short of inspiring, and today we are going to explore the journey, learn from his experience, and get his insights on where the industry is headed. Charles, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
I appreciate you having me, Navneet, and I appreciate everybody at home for tuning in.
Yes, let's talk about your background and journey. Let's start from the beginning. You got into an SEO at a very young age and have been in the industry for quite some time now. Can you share with us what initially drew you to the SEO and what were those early days were like to you?
Yeah, for sure. So I was always a bit of a gamer and loved video games and stuff. So I got into video game forums quite early on and kind of hacking forums as well, to be fair, for video game hacking. And then a lot of them had marketplaces within these forums, right? And I started seeing SEO come up over and over again on these forums. And then one day, my mom turned around to me and said, "Hey, look, we've just built this website and we kind of got in a lot of trouble because we got essentially scammed for the family by this company for our family business. And we've spent all this money and we can't really afford to market the website, but we still need to get sales from it. So we've been looking at doing ads. They're too expensive for PPC. So we were looking at SEO, and the SEO agencies are trying to charge us thousands of pounds per month. So could you have a look at it?" And I ended up having a look at it. I spent about £500 of her money that she gave me. And we ended up generating hundreds of thousands of pounds a month in sales for our e-commerce business. So it absolutely killed it in the end. And from there, I just really took off from building agencies, SaaS tools, courses, training, YouTube, personal branding, conferences, the whole kind of lot. So I've done quite a lot of things basically within the SEO industry at this point.
So which year was it?
I think it was probably about 2006, around that time.
That gives us perspective how long you've been, almost 18 years into the industry.
Yeah, exactly, literally.
Yeah, literally, right. So what were some of the key milestones or basically turning points in your career that really shaped your approach to the SEO?
Yeah, so definitely the first one would be mentors, right? So previously to having mentors and things, I was just doing a lot of hit and miss kind of strategies. And this was pre to Penguin and Panda days. So you could get away with a lot more, like you just spamming links and it would work. However, once Penguin came out and a lot of my properties got hit and I was just working in my first agency job, and I was only 16, that really changed my perspective. And I realized that I really needed to step up my game. And I kind of realized that the entire industry probably was going to have to step up their game as well. And a lot of agencies went bankrupt as a result. So I looked out for the best kind of people who were doing what I thought was the right style of SEO going forward after Panda and Penguin. And I started just trying to associate myself with them as much as possible and learn from them as much as possible. And that's what really stepped up my understanding and knowledge, was because they were already making good money, had very successful websites, had successful agencies, things like that, right? And all I had to do was kind of see how they were doing things and try and adapt it into my own plays, essentially.
Okay, so who were your initial mentors?
Yeah, so Todd Foster was the very first one. I met him like from day one when I was probably like 11 or 12 years old on forums. And he himself was only like 15 or something at the time. But he was already doing like made for AdSense websites like 2005, 2006. And they were doing, very well, several $1,000s per month off of AdSense at 15 years old. Back in those days as well was killer money. He was outperforming his parents. And then he ended up moving to Canada. And I stopped having as close of a relationship with him. And so I started learning more from online mentors. So I met Nick Eubanks, who's the founder of From the Future. And so I started learning a lot from him because he has ADHD as well. So we both kind of have a similar brain pattern thinking. So he taught me quite a lot about how to handle that and how to think slower and process information faster and things like that. And then I also met a couple other people who were like James Dooley and stuff as well, who ended up hiring me as a consultant when I was very young as well.
Okay, so that's an interesting story. Of course, the mentors helped a lot.
100%. I really don't think I'd be anywhere near as this high level or have as near the level of success that I've had if it weren't for them, because they've really literally they leveled me up by years. Instead, I think I probably would have still been working for an agency 3 or 4 years ago if I hadn't have met those people and they hadn't have inspired me to even run my own business and things like that, right? The entrepreneurship vibe. Like, a lot of people in my family have a very happy blue collar and white collar jobs, but I think I would have been happy in that position had I not been inspired so young by these people.
So, of course, SEO has evolved significantly over the years after Panda, Penguin, updates, and now as well. From your perspective, how has the industry changed since you first started, and what are some of the biggest shifts you have seen?
Yeah, 100%. So when I first started, it was all just, like I said, link spam and things like that, right? We had meta keywords and stuff, right, where you used to spam them. Google no longer even counts meta keywords or meta descriptions as ranking factors anymore. So there are fundamental shifts in what are actually ranking signals. And
Right.
it's weird how the industry has shifted from links to links, right? So it's basically gone from being like this very spammy link nature of like manipulating page rank and stuff like that in the very early 2000s and mid 2000s into nowadays just having as higher authority as possible and being able to rank for basically anything, right? We've all seen Forbes and Reddit and stuff like that.
Right.
These sites just ranking for hundreds of millions of keywords, right? The only reason they're doing that is off of link authority.
Right. And as someone who's always been at the forefront of SEO trends, and of course with all these changes you looking, how do you adapt to these changes, and are there any strategies or principle you have found to be timeless regardless of how the industry evolves?
Yeah, so the timeless strategies obviously are things like personal branding and stuff like that, where you're always going to do well if people like you and you're popular, like that's just, I think it's part of our like societal game and things like that. So I definitely always recommend, if you can, especially if you're in agency jobs or you're starting a fairly new agency, if you can start getting quite big on LinkedIn and Twitter these days, you can have a consistent flow of clients for basically forever, just off of that small personal branding on these social networking sites. You need to be consistently posting on them to get that consistent source of leads. However, you don't need to be that massive, right? I've seen several agencies now that the founders have got, 40, maybe 50,000 followers on LinkedIn, and they're running $10 million a year agencies now, right? Purely off of that one account, which is absolutely absurd if you think about it, right? It's absolutely crazy. So I definitely think that the most timeless thing would just be investing in your own personal brand, especially when it comes to agency plays. And if you're in an agency job, you can demand more money by having that kind of level of personal branding, by having a stage presence, by having all of this kind of stuff, because you're representing your company as well. So they have to pay you more for that representation and that awareness of your personal brand as well. So it's from both sides of the coin, whether you're in a job or you're owning your own business. I highly recommend doing that. In terms of how the industry has kind of shifted in strategies and things and stuff, I definitely think that a lot of agencies have actually started buying links more now than they were like 5 or 6 years ago. The funny thing is, it's actually quite funny, but I think it's kind of two reasons. But I speak to most link marketplaces and most link building agencies, and they're at like all-time highs every single month right now, right? They're doing like $500,000 or up to $10 million a month as link building agencies, right? As like some agencies like the Hoff and Factro and stuff like that, White Press and other agencies.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. They're killing it, and I think that, like I said, it's because of two reasons. One, because of AI content. So AI has just massively reduced the cost and the signals in Google of content, the link signals. Even if link signals haven't been boosted, because content signals have been devalued, in turn, link signals are more valuable, right? If you reduce signals in an algorithm, even if you don't increase the other ones are now more valuable because you decreased other ones, right? That's how algorithms work. Links now are just more valuable than they ever have been before. Google continues to make authority, link authority, that is, the number one metric there is in SEO. And I think that will be a continuous trend. So I've seen a big trend towards either link building agencies or digital PR agencies just doing very, very well these days, or having that as a bolt-on service. to your own kind of thing, and doing the whole. I like Fat Joe Davis's style of doing the productized agencies, right? Of having kind of services that you can just sell and upsell and stuff to different agencies and potentially refer other agencies, other clients and stuff like that. But I definitely see a shift more towards links than there ever has been really before.
Right. And what do you think is the reason specifically now?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, AI content signal has been devalued, but also in general, Google's just moving towards site authority. So on the higher end of the coin, if you're in really, really competitive keywords, right, most sites have got the on-page. They've got all the pages they need. They've got the on-page done. They've got the schema. They've got the technical stuff. They've got all of that stuff done, right? There's very limited stuff, especially in certain topics like car insurance and things like that. There's very limited new pages that you can create if you're a DR90 site already, right? So the difference is links at that point. When it comes to the difference in those major keywords, it is links. So, and generally speaking, what happens in the biggest SERPs tend to transcend down to the littler ones because they tend to get copied and things like that, right? The biggest players tend to get copied the most. However, that's also then just dripping down into everyone else. So Google's baked in consensus into the algorithm as well about 2 years ago. And if it means that everybody else is building links in the SERP, right, then it means that you probably need to be building links as well because of the consensus being baked into the algorithm. So there's all these different reasons that have just pushed now this main thing. And it's quite funny that in the first place, a lot of like the Penguin algorithms and things like that, and even in, I think, the December 2022 core algorithm, Google said specifically they're trying to target buying links, right? And they seem to have inevitably done the opposite, where it's just grown that industry more than anything.
Yes. Right. So let's talk more about link building. I know it's kind of been your first love when you started with link. Of course, got hit in 2012 with the Penguin, but yes, links are here to stay. I still tell to everyone, the intensity might have changed, but they are not going anywhere. Google is based on links eventually. The crawler is actually crawling the links only, right? So now
the algorithm originally, right? PageRank is what separated Google when it first came out, right? All the other algorithms weren't based on links at all. And that's what differentiated Google and made it a better algorithm, was that it was a PageRank based algorithm.
Right. So let's talk more about link building. Of course, an area where you have also demonstrated significant expertise. You had an agency for some time where you were also selling links, and of course you sold it. So what are some of the most effective strategies for building high quality backlinks in today's SEO landscape?
Yeah, so I definitely think that digital PR is a massive strategy if you're at the higher end of the stick. It's just that a lot of agencies are charging a lot of money for them, right? You can be paying like $15,000 for one project or something like that. And that project might get you 4 links. It's not that crazy of a deal. Generally speaking, I prefer to do kind of the more shotgun approach of digital PR, where you're trying to find multiple trending topics around that. It might not even be that it's related to your niche, but you can somehow relate them to your niche, then building those pages on your site and trying to create as big of an awareness about them as possible. That might mean outreaching to journalists. It might mean posting them on Reddit. It might mean going and posting them and paying through places like Connectively and Muckrack and stuff like that, right? There's all sorts of ways to get these pieces of content in front of journalists and in front of editors and bloggers and stuff that might cover it. That, generally speaking, is the most white hat, clean way of naturally getting links, right? The other way is to just buy them. So just go and outreach to sites that you want to get links from. Go find the biggest links that your competitors have and go and outreach to them and see how much it's going to cost you for them to delete your competitor's link and put your link there instead. There's stuff like that where you can start taking the link juice that other people are already using and just copy it, right? So that's probably the easiest one. And again, because consensus is baked into the algorithm, normally it's the most guaranteed play. Because if 3 other sites in the SERP that are top 5 have got the same link, then you also probably want that link as well.
So does the quality of the links in terms of the niche where you're getting link matters? Or right now everybody says the more traffic sites you get the link from, that's what it matters. It doesn't matter if it's exactly in your niche. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of a like axis where one side you want relevancy and the other side you want authority, right? So if you've got a DR99 linking to you, it doesn't really matter if it's a niche relevant site and link or not, right? Because it's a DR99 site that's linking to you. However, if you've got a DR site, you want that to be as relevant as possible so that it still sends a signal, because it obviously doesn't have enough signals on its own as a website to be sending link juice signals. So you need content level relevancy signals for it to pass juice and pass signals. So there's that kind of axis of, if the higher authority, the less relevancy, and the lower authority, the more relevancy. But ideally, you want the highest on both ends. So you just want to be right in the middle of the axis where you have the most relevancy and the most authority. DR 99 and perfect relevancy. But that also doesn't really exist. So
Right. So, of course, link building has always been crucial, as we discussed, but it's also an area that's constantly changing. How do you think link building will evolve in the next few years? And are there any upcoming trends or techniques that you are particularly excited about, besides, of course, digital PR?
yeah, so I definitely think that Google, from what I can tell, Google's becoming more reliant on links. And because there's just so many pages now in the index, I think, again, AI has just created this ability to mass generate pages, where one person who didn't have much technical ability used to take, a month to create 10 pages. They can now create 10 pages an hour. So that level of production or productivity has massively increased the amount of index bloat that Google has. So I definitely think that links will again continue to be more of a factor, and that just seems to be the case with every single update. And again, that means that links are more of a service, more economy around it, more business to be had. If you're not buying and selling links, you probably should be, kind of thing. Because that side of the industry will just continue to grow as a business model and a business size and economic growth and things. In terms of the style and quality, I do think Google will continue to adapt their algorithms to, so far, from what I can tell, they used to be a lot more toxic links, right? And nowadays, about 90% of the links that used to be toxic are now just neutralized. So they just don't pass any signals. So they used to pass a negative signal. Now they just don't pass any signals.
Right.
But that has now become the case more and more with just more links in general. So Google has neutralized the effects of more links. And I think that the reason behind that is to do with like triggers or flags within the algorithm. So if they think that this link is manipulated or spam or shouldn't count towards the relevancy and signals and authority of your domain and page that it's linking to, then they will just neutralize that link. And that's becoming more and more the case. So I think that as link builders, the best link builders and the best link building agencies and the best agencies in general will be able to build links that don't raise those flags and triggers as much. So they look very high quality. There's also other things that go into that though, because if you're doing a link building campaign, then there can be triggers by the number of links that you're building in one day. Exactly, link building, right? So you need to take into account a lot of different things when you're doing a link building campaign. And I think that will continue to be more and more important. So I think that the number of expert level link builders in the world will actually reduce, because it will take a lot more effort and a lot more knowledge and depth to be able to execute these link building campaigns successfully. And bear in mind, if you're just paying money to build neutral links, then you're literally just wasting money. So those link builders that are doing that, their clients will get pissed off. They won't do it for their own projects, etc., etc., etc. So they'll just eventually kind of burn out. And again, that's why I think that the higher number of link builders, or the number of link builders in general, will reduce, because it will require a high level of expertise.
Right. So recently you have been focused on something called as Parasite SEO. Of course, you do a lot of talk about that. So can you walk us through what that involves and why you find it effective?
Yeah, so as we were just talking about, Google has massively moved towards link authority and site authority and things like that as just a signal in general. And even with things like the helpful content update, if you're a certain authority level, you could get away with the helpful content update. There seems to be a filter where you could have low quality, terrible pages that maybe didn't even match the intent of the SERP that Google wanted to show, and they would still show you because you're a DR90, right? If you're a DR20, you got wrecked. You lost all your traffic, right? You lost your like life savings and things in some cases. It was that bad, right? With helpful content, it was really quite terrible for some people. However, I do think that I don't think that the helpful content update style effects will occur again. So I do think that Parasite SEO is going to essentially beat the algorithm forever, Because Parasite SEO is the ability to build pages on authoritative sites, right? And that basically means that you go onto a free blog site like Medium or LinkedIn Post or something like that, or you pay a newspaper, even a large site like CNET or something like that, you pay them off to get a sponsored article on their site. Authority on their domain allows that piece of content to rank for basically any keyword. And you can go into niches, potentially, where your average competitor might be a DR 40, 50, 60, something like that. And you'll rank the same day for that keyword on a page that goes live with a minimal investment, right? So you could be investing $1,000 to rank for this keyword or this topic, whereas it might have actually cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to rank for the same topic on your own website, because you need to build out this gigantic amount of topical content and links and authority and time and history and have all this staff and trust signals and things, right? But these websites already come preloaded with those that you're buying or building on. So you kind of abuse the fact that Google relies so heavily on these signals, and it allows you to just rank for basically anything.
So did the things change after my Google so-called my update, which went after these type of sites, or they still are same?
So they did change in some niches, right? So for example, in online casino in the UK and the US, they changed quite heavily, but it wasn't because of the algorithm. It was because Google went in and manually penalized a lot of the players in there, or they sent specific emails to the sites. News organizations like The Telegraph and USA Today, who had emails from the Google search quality team saying you need to delete this or we're going to manually penalize your subfolder. However, that is kind of one rule for these large news organizations. And it's not even a crazy rule, because they're saying they're going to penalize their subfolder, right? Just the folder that is abusing it, not the entire domain, right? Which is what everybody else would get if they did the same thing. So again, Google's just like continually showing this one rule for us, another rule for everybody else kind of thing. And if you're in the corporate boys club, then you're protected kind of thing, right? So I definitely think that the only things that were really affected were the sites that got manually cleaned up. But every other SERP that was affected by Parasite SEO is still affected by Parasite SEO. It just might not be affected to an extent because some of the biggest players got manually removed. But the algorithm is still playing into it. And there are new players in the game that you can buy, or there are new players abusing it with their own sites and things like that. And even there is a company called Phoenixio. I don't know if you know about Phoenixio. They bought Investopedia, Techopedia, readwrite.org, a bunch of other sites as well. And they basically just use these sites as parasites now for their crypto and stock offerings and like financial offerings and casinos and crypto casinos and stuff like that. And they're raking in tens of millions of dollars a month from these sites, just from their own, like, it's not an affiliate, it's technically promoting their own services and products. And in some cases, promoting their own, like, shitcoin meme coins, like terrible, like, crypto coins. Like, they're promoting their own ones of them and stuff. Like, it's really quite dodgy stuff, to be fair.
Right. So what it practically means that Google algorithm is not able to control or manage these links itself, which clearly means that they have to go out and ask people or do it manually. The algorithm, as people say, that sophisticated, is not exactly that sophisticated when it comes to filtering out these links, right?
No, because they so heavily rely on these specific signals like link authority and the fact that these organizations are maybe news organizations from 30 years and they've got 1 million index pages of generic content across so many, all this kind of stuff, and history and age and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just so many signals backing them up. When they go into a new keyword or go into a SERP, most of the competition don't have all of those signals. So they are just going to beat the competition, because Google, again, is so heavily reliant on them. And the only way that they clean it up is by manually removing it, because the algorithm is so reliant on it, right?
Right. Now, you have also talked about the potentials. I mean, you talk about potentials in foreign SEO, which, of course, you've been in non-English languages. How does these market differ from the US market or the English market? And what challenges have you faced, and what are some of the tips you can give to our listeners?
Yeah, for sure. So number one, the algorithms in the other languages are just so much easier than Google in like Thailand or something, where I am right now, is so much easier than Google in the UK or US. And that's just because they don't invest the same level into the algorithms. They don't do the same NLP stuff that they have in English. They don't have all of these things for these other languages. So they just don't do them. Secondly, some of these markets aren't even worth it, right? Because they don't have the ad spend. Again, like, I think Google US is something like 90 out of $136 billion of ad spend for Google. If you go to somewhere like Thailand, it's probably like $40 million or something. It's pennies for Google. Literally, they paid bigger fines and stuff recently than they're getting from some of these countries. So they just don't really care. So you can get away with a lot of these. And again, Parasite SEO in some of these other languages works even better. If you can get, the number one newspaper in that country to build pages for you in your niche, you will just dominate that country completely. In terms of doing business in other languages and stuff, most people think that other countries outside of the UK and the US and Canada, maybe Australia and stuff, right, aren't going to be as profitable as those countries. But actually, some countries are more profitable than the US and the UK and stuff, right? If you go to places like Norway or Saudi Arabia or Singapore or stuff like this, right, where they're predominantly still using Google, but they're searching in other languages, and they have a higher GDP per capita, and sometimes they have lower taxes than these countries as well in the West, they tend to actually be a lot more profitable. So you can, for example, if you're doing finances, right, you're doing loans or something like that, payday loans, short-term loans, home loans, all stuff like that. In the UK and US, you were talking maybe like $500 for a monthly loan for somebody, for like a payday loan, a short-term loan. In Norway or Saudi Arabia, you're talking like $10,000 to $15,000 for one loan. So it's not just 5 times, it's like in some cases it's like 20 or 30 times more money. So the commission payouts for those types of deals are sometimes 20 or 30 times bigger than what you would get in the UK or the US. So and sometimes they're even bigger than that. You can get like 50 times because there's less leads and less flow for them, and there's less competition. So they pay you out more. So a lot of the time we tend to go into these markets. It's easier to compete. They pay you more money and you have less competition. So in general, we're just printing money versus being in these niches in the US where there's all these competitors where you daily have to be checking what some other competitors are doing, where they're trying to negative SEO you when they're doing this and that, right? In these niches, you can make the same level of money without the headache.
So does foreign links or links from foreign sites still works?
Links in English from so if you're building English links to foreign sites, that works. The vice versa tends not to, unless you are getting the big sites. So if you can get like the biggest newspaper in Brazil or France or Germany or something like that to link to your site in the UK, then that's totally fine, and they will still pass dues. But if you're talking about like DR30 or 40 blogs in Spanish linking to an English site, that's not going to work, unfortunately, normally.
And what is your take on PBN now?
Yeah, we use PBNs quite a lot. It's just normally we don't directly link them to sites because they can be additionally risky. If you're doing your own private blog network, so it's your own sites, you're not buying them from vendors and stuff like that, then the risk level goes down significantly. But the main risk of buying off of other links is that there's other people buying links. So those other people could be absolute idiots. They could be building the most terrible links ever, right? Or they could get hacked, or they could there's so many things that can happen to other people that it's too risky. So generally speaking, we never buy links off of vendors that are selling PBN links. We'll just do them in-house. Even in-house, there's still an additional level of risk because they tend not to have much traffic and all this kind of stuff. So we tend to just use them for tier 2s. So if we get a big DR 80 or 70 or 90 linking to our site, we'll often power it up by getting PBNs to link to that link.
Okay. And do you, but I heard the PBN still helps in local SEO, or they don't?
Yeah. So let's say you're doing local SEO. If you can, for example, you're doing New York SEO, you're just trying to do New York local SEO. Number one, you can charge a lot of money to clients in New York if you start ranking their sites. So if you're ranking like New York lawyer, number one, you can charge them $10,000, $15,000 a month kind of thing, maybe more. And you can even do like lead sharing. So you can get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases per month if you're doing really big stuff and, like construction and things like that. But the main aim with that is that you try and buy New York specific PBNs. So you'd go after a city or a state's specific PBNs, and you start building 10, 20, 100 sites that are all authority, aged, well built around this specific city or state. And again, they're expired or they're aged. So they're pulling from previously businesses that used to exist, or their previous like administrations or government domains or schools or charities or anything like that, right? And in general, you're just building up this kind of localized authority that you can point to any client. And those types of links and those types of sites do tend to work amazingly well. And because you tend to have lower levels of competition in local SEO and in cities than you do nationally, they tend to work even better.
Okay. So that's a good tip. You need PBN, you want high quality PBN, it better be a city or state specific.
Yep, exactly.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about AI, of course. How can we have any SEO discussion these days without AI? Yes, so AI is becoming a big part of SEO. So how do you see AI changing the landscape of SEO, and what tools you find most useful? And this is a time you can also plug in your kappa as well.
Yeah, for sure. So as soon as AI kind of got released, I'm not talking GPT-3, I'm talking like GPT-2 and stuff like that, kind of clocking onto it and trying to use it as much as possible. And I realized for content generation, it was a much more advanced content spinner. And we were already using content spinning at Black Hat. So we were like, how do we plug this into our tools? And we've still got GPT-2 and GPT-3 content on pages that are ranking and have feature snippets and things like that that we generated 3 or 4 years ago. And they're still ranking now. So we tend to use AI for image generation, content generation, small amounts of video editing, transcribing, knowledge generation. Perplexity is absolutely insane for finding basically anything out. All sorts of things like that. Research and content creation. Basically, every aspect has been augmented by AI to some degree now. And it means that we're faster, we're better, we can produce more at a higher velocity, at a higher quality, at a higher rate. And we can just make more money with less people and less spend. Generally speaking, like I said, we've got AI across the board, and we've got like 20 different AI tools or something. But I own Cuppa AI, Topical Map AI, and a couple other tools that are currently in development and that will be released soon. And Cuppa specifically has grown to being probably one of the biggest and best AI SEO writing tools in the industry. And we're about to launch the 2.0, which will actually turn us into just a content generation tool for digital marketing. So we'll be doing like newsletters and social posts and all sorts of things, not just SEO. So it's going to be a much higher level once that releases. But in general, I think, like I said, it's augmented every part of our industry, and it will continue to do that. And once the next models come out with GPT-5, and they're going to be like video based and stuff like that, that's when I see the industry really taking off with some of the capabilities and stuff, because we'll be able to produce, like movies and stuff in 5 minutes. It'll be absolutely crazy.
Right. So how has been your journey with the Kappa in terms of the user base and revenue now, and of course the quality?
Yeah, for sure. So we're currently at, I think, like 1,000 power users or something like that, and 5,000 normal users or something. So it's absolutely crazy in terms of the size. Our Discord server has about 1,100 people in it, and it's really active. And we've got some really crazy users actually who are just actually showing us things about using the tool and stuff, right? And constantly giving us feedback and innovation and stuff. But the main thing for us has just been development. We're trying to force adoption within the industry because there's so many other AI SEO writing tools out there. We've got, 101 different competitors that I could probably name off the top of my head, kind of thing. We need to be different. And we've tried as much as we can to build around not only what our team thinks, and our team has got, people who have been in SEO and digital marketing for 15 years, not only what we think, but again, what the community thinks. And we're just trying to build what we would use in our day-to-day life as much as possible. And I think we're getting there. And I think with V2, that will be the next step up. But because there's so many competitors, I think in a year's time, there'll only be 10 left. And we want to be number one, So that's the aim.
Okay. So besides Copa, do you use AI tools for anything else besides content generation? And which tools are your favorites to do that?
Yeah, so for images, I love Midjourney, right? Like I've been paying for Midjourney for like 2 years or something now. For video editing, we use Descript, which is absolutely fantastic. Loom is awesome as well, just for the quick videos, and that does like the AI transcriptions and the AI summaries and the chapters and things like that. In terms of other stuff, there's like various Chrome extensions like Axiom AI, which does automation and click automation and stuff like that. So you can like ask it to sign up for a Facebook account or something like that for you, and it will do it for you, right? There's various tools like that. But again, day to day, the majority I just use Poe, so POE.com. And then that allows me to have access to all the models. So if I want to use Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, or Llama, I can just go to Poe. I have a subscription with them, and I can just select which model I want to use and start using that model, which allows me, again, because some models are better at certain things. So like Gemini and Claude tend to be a bit better at creative writing, but GPT tends to be better at like specifically optimized research content. And Claude is really good at coding. Llama's pretty good at coding. GPT is not that great at coding, stuff like that. So you want to use certain models for certain things, and I just use Poe for all of that.
Okay. Now, a lot of affiliate sites got hit in the March Google update, of course. So we all know a lot of the market tends to be in a very negative sentiment. How do you see affiliate sites business now in the wake of these Google updates?
Yeah, so affiliate sites, number one, if you were hit by helpful content, that's game over, right? You're not coming back. It seems to be a punitive action where it will just hit your site and you can't rank new pages. It won't let you rank old pages, etc., etc. When in regards to new sites, you can still build new affiliate sites. It's just Google keeps changing the intent of SERPs more and more away from affiliate blogs and things like that, right? So if you used to go and look up a lot of keywords like best XYZ, it used to just be best review guides with like top 10 this, top 20 that, something like that. And the top 10 pages would all be the same kind of review guides. Nowadays, you have Reddit and core ranking, you've got YouTube videos, you've got e-commerce pages, you've got all this other intent stuff that Google has filled the SERP with, and that it just won't rank your pages for. Yes, there are certain keywords where that intent hasn't changed and you can still rank your pages for. And if you're a high enough authority, you're a DR90, you can still rank your pages. But if you're a DR30 or 40 or something like that, you can only compete where you can compete. So the level that you can get to and the level of earnings that you had, that ceiling has now come down drastically.
Okay. And so let's talk now a little bit about personal branding. Of course, you have launched Charge Flow training, and then you have started with the SEO careers as well. So what inspired you to create this platform, and what the students or a subscriber can expect to learn?
Yeah, so Charge Float training, basically I was in COVID, I started a Gumroad account and mainly started on Twitter, and I ended up becoming like a top 10 Gumroad seller within 2 years or so. And I was earning quite good amounts of money off of Gumroad. But Gumroad had a system where if you'd earned over $1 million in revenue on the platform, you got the lowest possible commission rate. So you were paying 2.9% plus 30 cents per order. And then I hit that $1 million in revenue. And then 2 months later, they changed the whole system and took it away from me. And they made everybody pay 10% flat fee. So I'd like earned this tier, fought for this thing. And I was like, well, screw this. I'm not paying 10% anyway. So I just moved to my own platform and I built a Shopify store because I saw so many other people were on Shopify, like Alex Hormozy was just killing it and things like that. And you could do your own customization. Klaviyo was on there. All this stuff was just easy. So I built it on Shopify and started releasing loads of free books, free downloads, checklists, things like that. And then started doing more premium courses, consulting, audits, things like that. But I've realized I didn't really like it. And I didn't really like the customer service and speaking to people. And it started growing a lot more than Gumroad and becoming more of its own entity. So I just got one of my team and put him as the CEO of the business. And now he runs everything there. And I just can make content for it, which is perfect, right?
So you now be not releasing any content on Gumroad?
No. So no, we don't put anything through Gumroad. It's only through Charge Float training now.
Okay. And all right. So you done a remarkable job building a personal brand within the SEO community. What advice would you give to others who are looking to establish themselves as an authority in this space? Of course, you talk about being active on Twitter and LinkedIn, but is there any other advice would you also like to give?
Yeah, like don't be afraid to get out there and network. Just send DMs to people, ask people to go for coffee if they're in your city, go to events, especially if they're free. Make sure that you're releasing case studies consistently. The more information you show and talk about, and even if you see things in the SERPs, right? When you're doing your research and you see a cool thing that you think is interesting, talk about it, share about it, right? You'll eventually get some stuff that might go a bit viral in the industry, and you get a couple of them and people start really knowing your name. And you can bear in mind that some of the bigger conferences like SMX and stuff, they'll pay you to quite a bit of money to be on stage. You can earn 5 figures to get just for one speaking gig, right? So there's stuff like that that can really level up a lot of people's careers, especially if they're more in agency jobs and stuff as well.
Okay. And so, of course, in today's digital landscape, how important do you think personal branding is for SEO professional? Is it becoming more of a necessity rather than nice to have?
Yeah, if you're running an agency, you have to do personal branding. If you're doing freelance or consulting, you have to do personal branding. If you're doing affiliate and stuff like that, you don't have to do it, right? And in fact, I'd recommend you don't publicly reveal stuff, because Google has come after people quite recently,
Right.
and in the last few years, have come after influencers for doing the exact same thing. So I only think that personal branding is important in certain parts of the industry, and then for 60%, 70%, you probably don't need to do it.
Okay.
And it's better off if you stay in the shadows. You still need to build a network though, right? You can't just be in the shadows, not talking to anybody, not doing anything, because you will be behind. You won't be as up to date as you can be, and you won't be able to back and forth with ideas that you have with people that are just as good as you, which is what you need. Sometimes your ideas aren't that great, right? And you need somebody to tell you that, right? Because you go and implement them on your own accord and you end up ruining your site or your campaign and things, right? So just having that network is more important, I would say. Everybody needs a network. Not everybody needs a personal brand.
Right. Now, a lot of people talk about niching down in the SEO agency. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so I think it's a valid technique, and it's a valid business model, because you get to learn so much about an industry. You only need to go to certain industry events. You can one client who knows other people in another city and things can refer business to you very easily, stuff like that. And you can start speaking at conferences in that niche and in that event. So it makes it easier. The only thing is, if anything happens to that industry, you're very susceptible, right? There's quite a few travel specific digital marketing and SEO agencies that got absolutely destroyed in COVID, right? When COVID rolled around and there were travel specific agencies, they lost 90% of their revenue overnight, maybe 100%, right? So they had to fire everybody, restart from scratch. They had no business the next day, kind of thing, right?
Right.
So you have to be careful to things that those industries are susceptible to. And bear in mind that SEO can also be susceptible to change as well. So if both are susceptible to change, you might be in some serious hot water, right? So I would just try and go with industries that are more stable. So there are the big ones like law firms and surgeons and dentists and things like that. Even like construction and stuff is really good and kind of underserved. But you need to just make sure that anything that you're doing isn't susceptible to change. That even if you're doing it in a local country or jurisdiction, there might be government influences around construction and things like that. If you're doing that is niche around law, all sorts of stuff. So you need to make sure that whatever you're doing is protected.
Right. Of course, staying ahead of the curve in such a rapidly changing industry must be challenging. So how do you keep yourself updated and ensure you are always at the forefront of these trends?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn a fair amount, right? So like I probably spend maybe like 15 minutes a day on socials, just scrolling through, having a check if there's any like trending news, stuff like that. I'm also in quite a few different groups. So if anything, serious happens, like when the Google Monopoly announcement happened, I saw it in a group chat basically straight away and kind of managed to comment and engage with that. So anytime there's algorithm updates, anytime there's major changes and stuff like that, my network is the best place for that, because I get told about it from other people normally straight away, or I find out about it on social media straight away. In terms of keeping up to date with AI and SEO changes and stuff, a lot of it is just testing your own work and then making sure that you're following the right people who are the most up to date themselves in that specific area that maybe you can't keep up to as much as possible. There's a really good YouTuber called AI Explained. He's a British guy who's about my age, I think, as well. And he does news videos twice a week about just AI business and AI model updates and changes and stuff. And he's really, really good.
Okay. Now, as someone who has sold multiple agencies and website, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs in the SEO industry?
Yeah, so I would definitely say, number one, you want to lean up, right? Don't have a really heavy outgoing business, right? A lot of people, the number one things in agencies and stuff is HR cost, right? That's the number one killer for most people, is that they end up over hiring and they lose a couple clients and then they're not profitable, right? And they struggle to fire people because it's a hard job firing people. You don't want to do it, especially if you've just onboarded them like in 2 months ago or something like that, and you promised them the world kind of thing, and now you've got to destroy their dreams. That's not fun. So a lot of people tend to have issues around costs versus profit. So I would just say make sure you're always profitable or as profitable as possible, and focus on that first. Focus on growth in the highest growth areas. Too many people focus on growth in what they think is going to be the biggest growth areas, and they don't track and analyze their businesses. They don't track and analyze spend and clicks and profitability and clients and things like that. There's normally the 80-20 rule, and most people don't even know about it, right? They don't even know that 80% of their cost is here and 20% of their profit is here and 8% of their profit is here, et cetera, and just trying to focus more on those areas and just trying to always be that better business, going into work every day and not having it be a slog, just have it be a better business when you leave it, not causing more fires and stuff, right? And then the second thing is don't get kind of drawn in by like crazy shiny object syndrome stuff. New crazy courses or ideas or tools or things like that generally don't happen that much. ChatGPT was like the biggest game changer in SEO in recent memory kind of thing. And even then that was free. So you don't necessarily need to be spending crazy money to get this success. You can just spend precisely and cleverly and you'll be able to get to a higher level, and try and stick to the basics. Don't overcomplicate stuff, right? Overcomplicating link building will get you burned. Overcomplicating your on-page SEO will get your pages over-optimized, stuff like that. So just make sure that everything's simple and profitable.
Okay, that's a fair advice. So what are the top resources you will recommend for someone looking to deepen their SEO knowledge and skills?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're doing like local or e-com or affiliate and stuff, there's different people to follow. But I would generally try and just follow the specific people that are currently doing it, right? There's a lot of influencers in SEO that right now, they haven't done an SEO campaign in the last 12 months. They haven't even looked at one kind of thing, right? So they don't really know what is currently going on with Google, what is happening in the SERPs, what is working the best, all those kind of things. Try and follow the people that are actively doing it. In AI, for example, the best person as an example would be Julian Goldie, because he is posting and streaming every single day, sometimes twice per day, of him actively doing stuff on his screen. Those kind of people are the best people to follow. But if you start hearing really conflicting advice, that's when you want to kind of seek out some networking, some support and stuff like that. Bear in mind that SEO information can get outdated very quickly. So if you're watching a video from 4 or 5 years ago, that advice might not be that relevant right now.
Right. So before we wrap up, is there anything you are currently working on that you are excited to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'm working on a Parasite SEO tool. Yeah. So that will should release in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks from today of recording this. And it is going to be literally a Parasite SEO tool where you input your keyword or your topic, and it will build Parasite opportunities for you that aren't currently ranking, but are topically and authoritatively relevant to your keyword. And it's available in 22 languages. We have a database of like 6,000 free parasites and over 1,000 paid ones across all the 22 languages as well. And it has an AI planner built into it, so you don't even really need to know that much about Parasite SEO. You can just start ranking using the Parasite AI planner, which will do everything for you. Where do I sign up? ParasiteSEO.com. It will be available very soon. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And finally, where can our listeners follow your work and stay updated on your latest projects?
Yeah, so mostly on Twitter and LinkedIn, just at Charles_SEO on Twitter, and then LinkedIn is Charles Floate. You can connect with me there.
I have posted both the links in the comments below. Okay.
Awesome.
And that is it, Charles. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Of course, your insights are invaluable, and I'm sure our listeners have gained a lot from this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me, and hope everyone enjoyed the show.
Yeah, and thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with anyone who might find it valuable. Until next time, keep optimizing.